Welcome to the Dom Sub Devotion Podcast.
Every episode of Dom Sub Devotion shares the lessons learned from our experience of love, devotion, and desire inside of our 24/7 Dom Sub marriage.
We've found that dominance and submission is more than just a kink. For us, it's been a path to deep intimacy and desire that lasts over the long term. We share our experience through this podcast to be the example that we didn't have when we started down this path, and to help you find your way to a dynamic that works in your real life.
You can learn more about us and our courses and offerings in the show notes and at infinitedevotion.com. Thank you for listening.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Dom Sub Devotion. My name is Andrew, and for those of you who might be new here, I am a dominant in a 24/7 Dom Sub relationship with my wife, Dawn. And what we do on Dom Sub Devotion is speak about both the challenges and the rewards of power exchange dynamics inside of loving relationships, and how to make that work, and how often, it's really challenging. So this week's episode I titled, "Why Won't He Just Lead?" And this is a question that I hear from women so often, especially women who crave something more out of their relationships, out of their connections, marriages, with a man that they just see as being very passive, as being very soft. And they want more from him. And often they just can't wrap their heads around why it would be so hard. Like, why is he so passive? Why is he so soft? Why is he the way that he is? And so my hope with this episode is that for the women who are wanting more from your man, maybe you're wanting him to be more dominant, you're wanting him to be more masculine, you're wanting him to take charge and take the lead. I want to help you see why this is so challenging, why this can be so difficult, because I'm a man who had these same challenges. I still do sometimes have these same challenges where I want to lead, and there is like this resistance inside of me that it feels like I'm battling myself. So I want to help women have some compassion for why this is so challenging, and help lay out a little bit of what it really takes for a man to be able to step into this. So that when you are aching for more from him, you can maybe approach it from a way where you don't have to make him wrong, but you can see a little bit more clearly what's actually going on underneath the surface. So when I hear a woman say to me, like, why won't I want my man to lead? Why won't he just step up? What you're really saying to me when you say that is that you're tired. You're tired of having to be in control of everything. You're tired of having to be the one to hold it all together. And that what you're really longing for is not just for him to lead. You're also longing for a feeling inside of yourself of not having to be the one to manage everything, not having to be the one to take control of everything, to make sure that everything gets done. And quite often, you're wanting to no longer have to manage him. And I understand how frustrating and exhausting this is. You know, you're not wrong for wanting a man who leads. There's nothing wrong with wanting that. Because this is about being able to trust. And generally, when you are feeling a lack of, or a vacuum of power, and you, because you're competent, you're capable. If you don't feel him stepping up and taking charge, then you feel like you have to, and you do it well, and it burns you out. And then the fact that he's not will erode some sense of trust in him. And that causes you this tension, this fear, all of this exhaustion. And what you're really craving is a desire or an ability to rest. But it feels like you can't because he's not doing it for you already. But the flip side of this, that if you're a woman who has felt this way, or maybe does right now in your relationship, the flip side of this is if you are only looking at your frustration with him and with your frustration with how you feel, you're missing out on something that is really essential for you to understand, and that's that leadership for him probably doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel okay. It's not that he's refusing to lead. It's not that he's not capable of leading. It's that he's internally conflicted about what it means and what it takes to actually take charge in his life. And on some level, it doesn't feel okay. This is something that I have battled within myself for probably my entire adult life. And that's this feeling that even though I want to be in charge, I know that when I lead, everything goes well. And then there are still sometimes these little, just like thoughts and resistances and fears that make it feel like it just isn't okay. Even though I know I want it, I know that my wife and submissive is relying on it. And then it feels like if I step forward, especially into a space that makes her uncomfortable, that I'm doing damage. It feels like that power is dangerous. It feels like authority and leadership hurts people. That even wanting that somehow makes me controlling or toxic or whatever. So there's this internal tension that you have to acknowledge. He wants to lead, but he's afraid to be wrong. He doesn't want to hurt you. He doesn't want to hurt anyone. Because a good man does not want to do damage. And there is something deeper than just the present moment conflict or challenge that he's probably facing inside of himself. There's a fear in there. And so, again, if you are a woman who craves more from your man in a relationship or just from men in relationship as a whole, being able to have compassion for the fact that this is hard for him will get you a lot farther than telling him he's doing it wrong. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't want what you want. It doesn't mean that that's not okay. But I think it'll be a lot easier for you to understand where he's at if you can connect to this truth. And that is that the struggle that he faces, stepping up, taking charge, leading, sometimes even just taking care of himself, are the same fear that you feel of letting go of control. Because you may want to let go of control, but then not having things go your way might feel very dangerous. And so these are the same fears expressed through different energetic bodies. And so in this episode, as we go through it here, we're going to look at what's really in the way for him. How did his conditioning shape him? And we're going to talk a little bit about what you as a woman can do while he's still learning to lead and to trust himself. So if we really want to get to the bottom of this, maybe the real question isn't just why won't he lead, but the real question might be something more like, what made him believe that it wasn't safe or okay to lead in the first place? So again, if you're a woman listening to this, I understand very much the place that this desire for leadership comes from, because a lot of women that I talk to are just tired. And I'm not talking about sleepy here. I'm talking about an existential sort of exhaustion from carrying the weight of everything. The plans, the emotions, the future, all of the little details of life that she's had to manage, because she's never really been able to fully trust that anyone else will actually step up. So you might be the one managing the relationship, planning the date nights, dealing with home projects, managing the calendar and what the kids have going on, managing your emotions, managing his emotions. And again, you are likely extraordinarily capable of doing this very well. But that capability becomes its own cage. It becomes its own prison. Because at a certain point, enough years of this, and you'll almost forget how to relax. And so your strength does not equate to safety, even though that's what all of the capability and all of the execution that you may be very good at as a woman, all of the responsibility. It can help you survive. But what you're really looking for is safety and peace. And when you're looking for your man to step up, it's relief from that you're seeking. It's the relief from having to be in charge, to be able to set it down and trust that it's going to be handled, that everything isn't going to fall apart if you don't control everything. So I feel you, because what you're really aching for is the ability to stop being the one who has to lead everything. Underneath that longing, though, is a very deep fear. It's that fear that if you let go, you'll get hurt. It's that fear that if you trust, you'll be disappointed. If you surrender, or, God forbid, submit, you and everything that matters to you will just disappear. So all of this control is really protection. Again, it's seeking safety, but it can't quite get you there. And your independence, and a lot of times your capability and your responsibility, these are built for survival. They're things that you learned how to do in order to get by, in order to not need to trust anyone else. Because every time that someone else dropped the ball, every time that you were hurt, you told yourself, no, I'll just take care of it myself. And there's a physical feeling that goes along with this too, and this is what I see on a lot of women's faces. It's the tight upper lip, it's the rounded shoulders, it's the shallow breathing, the clenched jaw. So while you may long for your man or a man to lead you, you're also braced against any sort of mistake or drop, understandably. Control is the only way that you've learned to protect yourself from that. So the point of this episode, or the question, is why won't he just lead? And here's the reason that I'm speaking to this side of it for you as women. All of that fear that you feel around letting go of control is the exact same energy that a man who is struggling to lead feels in himself. It's just reversed. Because your fear is saying, if I let go, I'll get hurt. If I don't manage everything, something will get dropped or forgotten. Problems will happen. His fear is that if I take control, if I do what I want, if I lead things in the way that I see best, people are going to be upset with me. People aren't going to love me. Everything is going to fall apart. And I'll probably end up hurting someone and myself. This is the same wound. And it's wearing two different faces, two different masks. You're both scared of the same thing. And that's that power isn't safe. So there's this very predictable duality that's playing out here, where you as a woman may be overfunctioning and he is equally underfunctioning. You're leading emotionally because you don't feel led energetically. He's hesitating because he feels your doubt and your lack of trust. And the more you step up, the smaller he feels. And then the smaller he feels, the more you feel like you have to step up. So it's a dance that you're dancing together. Neither of you want it to be that way, probably. But both of you are playing a role in keeping it going that way. So what I want for you as a woman is to understand why he struggles to provide that safety. We've got to look at what's really in his way. What's really the challenge that he faces. Because from the outside, or from your perspective, it may look like he's apathetic, like he doesn't care, like he's passive. And to some extent, you're right. But why? Why? On the inside, that man is conflicted. He's been trained to doubt his own authority. Chances are he doesn't even know what it means to lead anymore. Because every time he's tried, he's been slapped down, or he's felt rejected, or he has tried to exert authority or power that's come from this place of a lack of self-trust. And he's done maybe some damage with it. And so he reinforced this belief that it's not safe to lead, that it's not okay to lead, that he just hurts people. Women, if you knew the number of men who have said to me that they're afraid that they're just going to hurt people, that's who they think that they are, you would have a lot more compassion for how challenging it is for a man to lead. The examples that we get as men of what it looks like to be a man, especially what it looks like to be a man in power, are not good ones, ladies. We do not get good embodied examples of loving leadership that takes charge and looks out for, protects, provides, and guides in a healthy way towards positive outcomes. Men have also been hurt by disembodied masculine power. But when we're hurt, we're learning, like when women are hurt by men, women learn to protect themselves from men. That's the conditioning. When men are hurt by men, we learn that we're bad. or that we would be bad if we were anything like that. And so we learn not to be like that. We don't have better examples. So instead, what we do is we walk through life trying to be good, trying to be harmless. This is where the proverbial quote-unquote nice guy comes from. It's conditioning. From the time that we were little boys, most of us men were taught and told that being strong or assertive or directive or taking charge made them dangerous. It made them mean. It made them self-centered. So we were trained to be nice instead of powerful. We were also, many of us, hurt by men and those masculine institutions that exerted tyrannical power and caused damage to us. And all of that is absorbed differently by a masculine soul. It causes us to soften ourselves. Because we don't want, like a good man doesn't want to hurt anybody. And if it feels like leading is going to hurt somebody, we won't lead. We'll just back off. And it also, when it comes to relationship, a lot of times feels like women need to be protected from men, not protected by men. And guess what? I'm a man. So if I believe that women need protection from men or that men hurt women, if those are the beliefs that I develop as a young boy, and now I'm 25, 35, 45 years old in a relationship with a woman, that programming is still running there in the background. So as men, we grow up walking this tightrope because there's always a part of us as a man that wants to lead, that wants to be in charge, that wants to make the world a better place. But the inner conflict is this belief that doing that very thing would do damage. And, women very often get hurt by their fathers. We talk about quote-unquote daddy issues. We hear that phrase quite a bit now. But men are also hurt by those same men. The boys in those households are not any less hurt. The hurt just gets absorbed differently. So every woman who's listening to this, who's been hurt by men, recognize that the men that you know have also been hurt. They just show it very differently. We've seen what power can do to hurt people, and good men don't want to do that. But that fear, that lives really deep in us. So again, this isn't just like, oh, I'm passive. Or he's just a passive guy. No, he's not a passive guy. He's terrified of hurting someone. And it feels a lot safer to him to not do anything than it does to step forward and lead and potentially cause damage. But the men that I know, the men that I've worked with, the men that I speak to, it's not that they don't want to lead, but it's really that if they lead, they feel like not only are they going to hurt someone, but they're going to be rejected. It feels wrong. It feels absolutely wrong on some deep level to just say, this is what we're doing tomorrow, or go do this for me, or to take charge of the household calendar or the household tasks, or to, Dawn told this story on an older episode of the podcast one time about how she criticized me for folding the towels wrong when we were newly married. And it stuck with her when I said to her, Just because I do it differently doesn't mean I do it wrong. But just saying something like that to a woman that you love can really, ladies, feel like death to us. This is what you don't understand about why it's so hard. That wounded inner child does not want to allow us to speak up for ourselves. So instead, here's what we do. This emotional tug of war that's going on inside of us. A man who loves you, a man who cares about you, wants to make you happy. He wants to see you happy. He wants to see you having a great life. But then because of this internal tug of war going on, the ways that he tries to make you happy, which are probably a lot more like what he felt as a little child, like he had to do to make his mother happy, or the ways that he wished he would have seen someone treat women when he looked at maybe his father and said, oh, I'm never going to be like that. I wish he was like this. So he learned these things at a very young age. And so now when he's trying to give to you, that giving is coming more from a people-pleasing, not from a grounded direction and confidence that he feels in himself and just pure desire to give. When he has this tug of war going on inside of himself, he's going to say yes to things that he doesn't actually really want to do because he's afraid of upsetting you, because he's afraid of speaking up for himself, because he's afraid of standing up for himself. And again, this doesn't have anything to do with you. It has to do with what's going on inside of him. But then when he says yes, even though he's doing it from a disembodied place, if he's going against his internal signals, he's going to develop resentment. And that resentment is going to come out at you. Or it's going to come out in a way that is going to cause him to shut down or feel very needy. And so when you look at a man, you're like, well, why does he just shut down? Well, probably because of the things I'm talking about here. Why does he get so angry? Well, maybe because he's so lost inside of himself and he's really very angry at himself. He's so full of resentment because he doesn't actually just know how to speak up for himself. You know, and a man who's in this internal tug of war will confuse or really not even understand that being agreeable, that being nice, that just doing what you want, it won't make sense to him that that's not actually being loving. It feels like that's how you love someone. So because of this, he hesitates. He holds back. He feels resentful. He's shut down. He plays video games. He drinks. He does all of these things to numb himself out from this very uncomfortable feeling of not knowing what the hell he's supposed to do. And all of that then erodes your trust in him. And then the less you trust him, the more he just feels confirmation of all of these untrue beliefs. Right? He's taking the things that you're feeling in response to how he's showing up as evidence that he's not good enough, that he's not worthy, that he's not trustable, that he hurts people. It's like this self-reinforcing loop that goes on inside of a man, when that man might very much just want to be a strong, solid, confident leader, a dominant man, a man who takes charge. Might be completely inaccessible to him, no matter how much he wants it. So I share this with you so that you can understand that this is deeper conditioning. This goes farther back. This isn't really about you. It's playing out in your relationships, and it's certainly not excusing his stagnation. Because every man has to face the part of himself that's afraid of being powerful in order to bring his power into reality in a way that where he can actually feel confident in it. He has to stop waiting for permission to lead. He has to step forward even when he feels rejected, when he feels unwanted, when it feels like he's going to cause damage. Every man has to, if he ever wants to cross over this barrier into a stronger, more powerful connection to himself, he has to cross through that discomfort. And if you're going to be with a man that's stepping forward into this leadership, you're likely going to experience a man who flounders, who makes mistakes, who does things that might be very hurtful feeling to you. Because he has to learn how to be in power, be in a position of power, and to balance that with love and with care. Again, most men don't have any examples, and so he's flailing around a lot of times. God knows I have. It feels like I'm just trying to figure out how to walk when nobody has ever taught me and there really aren't any examples. I've never seen it happen before. No clue what I'm doing. Now, over time, I've gotten quite a bit better at this, but it hasn't been without a lot of mistakes. This is why devotion in these relationships is so important. It's why we talk about this so much. The amount of patience that Dawn and I have had to have for each other, the amount of patience she has had for me, while I have made some very significant mistakes in the process of trying to figure out how to stand up in my power. That patience, that compassion, that understanding, while also still letting herself be very upset when I do things that upset her. That is what has allowed me to challenge and work through and overcome these patterns so that I can be more of the man that I want to be, which allows her to have more of the kind of man that she really wants to have. So in this transition, as a man learns how to step into his leadership, into his power, there's always going to be that in-between period. But as he starts healing, his leadership stops becoming just something that he does. It stops becoming or being some sort of a performance. And it starts to become more of who he really is. At the beginning, when a man realizes maybe that she wants his leadership, that you're looking for him to lead, or maybe like it was in our case where I realize that I want to step forward, I want to be more of a leader in this relationship, but I don't know how to do that. So about the only thing that have access to, and that a man has access to, is essentially trying to perform something or replicate something. If you are asking for this from him, he's probably going to try to replicate what you are asking for. And that will usually feel like a big act to both of you. So he might start taking charge, setting plans, giving orders, but his energy is going to feel off. You're going to feel like it's not real. He doesn't feel like it's real because he doesn't know what this feels like. It's complete foreign territory in his system. So he might mimic confidence or try to show up with a new sort of confidence, but it feels very surface level. Like you probably still feel the discomfort and the nervousness underneath the surface. And this especially shows up, I see, for women who have been the ones to tell their man that they want him to be more dominant. So he starts trying to act dominant because he thinks that's what you want. But there's a faking it that happens at the beginning of this, because it's something that he's doing for you. And the real leadership that both of you are seeking is presence. It's a rooted, grounded, solid presence that, well, it's calm regardless of chaos, and it's direction and confidence that doesn't need validation from you. It's clarity that lets you let go of control because you trust that he's got it, all of these things. Like for me, when I've learned to really be fully present in my body, I don't have to think about leading anymore. I don't have to try to lead. It's very natural. It's taken a lot of time. And what I've realized over time is that it doesn't matter so much what I say. It matters how I feel inside of myself, because Dawn feels my nervous system. She feels whether or not I'm actually solid, whether I'm actually confident. Like, she can feel if it's real. You know if your man is solid or if he's playing some kind of a game or he's faking something. So you feel like his lack of surety. And in that period of time, especially if you have a man who's trying to step forward into this, there are going to be times where he's saying one thing and you're feeling something very differently. But again, if you want him to lead, if you came to this episode because the title, Why Won't He Just Lead? That's a very, very fragile place for a man to be. Stepping forward, trying to figure out how to do this, how to be this for himself. And again, I want to equate this back to the same level of fragility that it feels like for you to let go of control. To not watch him for a little mistake that he might make and use that as evidence that you can't trust him. You know what that feels like in your system, probably. So understand that as a man is trying to step forward and lead, this is the same exact wound. It's the same exact thing inverted. It's his experience of that. Then he has to go through this process of meeting his own fear, of standing face to face with his own pain. He's going to have some very deep emotions that he's going to have to work through and sort through. He's going to have to face his shame, self-doubt, guilt, because those are going to be where he learns to take this from performance and make it real. So if he's still learning how to lead, if he's trying, if he's making effort, but it isn't ringing true yet, it's not because he doesn't care and it's not because he's not capable. He's still learning how to be with himself. So when you can start to see that his struggle to lead and your struggle to surrender are the same thing, that's where some real magic can start to happen. Because your man isn't just going to be able to step up and take control. He isn't just going to be able to step up and lead. Not only because of the things that he has to work through inside of himself that are going to take time and intentionality on his part, but also if you, with all of that fear and all of that resistance to letting go of control, are the one who he is trying to lead, he's only going to be able to lead to the extent that you're willing to set that down. Next week's episode, I'm going to do the mirror of this. Why won't she just let go? Speaking to men about why this is so challenging on the other side of this. But this is a dance. This is something you're going to have to do together. Because just like he's going to look at your resistance to setting down control, like your resistance to his leadership, there's a part of him that's going to see that as evidence that it isn't okay for him to lead. When really it's just your fear of being dropped, of being hurt. And so there's a dance here that goes on. If you want him to lead, you're going to face a very painful, very challenging reality for yourself as a woman. And that is that it's not just that easy to let him. And so you're going to need to have some patience with each other, with yourselves, and recognize that what I'm sharing with you here is that you can get there. Every man I believe, has the potential and the capability of being a solid, strong leader. I think every man is born to be dominant in his own right. And, some people will probably say to that line, well, what about submissive men? Here's what I've never met. I've never once met a man who claims to be submissive, who has done all of the work to heal the pain from his childhood, from his wounding, from the ways that he was hurt by men, from the ways that he was hurt by women, who's done all of the work to transcend all of his pain and still thinks that he wants a woman to tell him what to do. I'm not saying it can't happen, but in 5 years of doing this work as a full-time career, I've never seen it. I think every man has a dominant frame inside of him. But it's for a lot of men, especially the men who feel very passive, who feel very submissive, who feel very weak in some way to a woman, that dominance is underneath a lot of pain. And that pain feels painful for him to go into. And again, it's going to feel like he's being mean or harsh or hurtful just because he goes into it. And so this is why I talk so much about the importance of doing really deep work as a part of these power exchange dynamics. Because without doing that, when a man tries to step up into power, when he tries to step into a dominant role, when he's playing this out, when he's acting it, it's going to come from the only place that it can come from, which is all of that pain that he still has inside of himself. And so the ways that he tries to control are going to be ways that he's trying to avoid that pain, or to soothe that pain, or to get what he wants, to make him feel better about himself, to validate himself. When a man hasn't faced his pain, his leadership becomes a way to avoid his pain. His dominance becomes a way for him to deal with his pain. He'll use his authority that you may grant him, tentatively or excitedly, where you say, I'll follow you. I'll do what you say, sir. If he takes that and then uses it to make himself feel powerful because he feels powerless inside when it comes to women, people are going to get hurt. And if he has any kind of a belief about himself or about men hurting women, now the way that he caused that pain, because you've heard the phrase before, hurt people hurt people. And that's what goes on. And this is what a lot of dominant submissive dynamics are built on, two people trying to avoid their pain by using these power exchange dynamics. So a man has to be willing to dive very deep into his early life, his boyhood conditioning, the ways that he was hurt, both by active damage and by neglect and fear. And on the other side of that exists a grounded, embodied power that I, again, think that every man holds. But what do you do in the meantime as a woman who is aching for this leadership from a man? When you see his potential, or you desire this from him, but he's not there yet. When you're tired of leading or having to be in control, but you still don't feel him stepping forward. You have to realize that you only control one thing, and that's yourself. You cannot lead a man into being a leader. You cannot surrender your way into him taking charge. The only thing that you can do is to turn that focus back inward and be willing to look at that one piece that I've pointed out here throughout this episode, which is, why does it feel for you so damn terrifying to let go of control? What are the things you wouldn't ever imagine giving up? The calendar, the checkbook, the money, the to-do list, telling him what he's supposed to do or how he's supposed to love you or lead you or what it's supposed to look like to be a dom. You don't do these things or hold on to these things because you want to be in control. You're doing that because on some level it feels like it's the only way to get what you need and get what you want. But every time you take over and you try to control your way to safety, you're just reinforcing the story that you're not safe. So turn that focus inward as you're waiting for your man to rise, as you are aching for your man to lead you. Turn that focus inward. Take a look at where you tell him what to do. And instead ask yourself, why do I feel afraid of what happens if I don't tell him what to do? When you see him do something that's not the way you would like it done, like folding the towels, or the direction that he's taking to drive to the store, instead of correcting him, ask yourself, why can't I just let him make his own decisions? Stay curious. Get curious about your man. Be interested in his experience. Notice those little cues, those places that he's trying to step forward. And maybe you'll get farther by not slapping his hand when he is learning how to do something that he does not know how to do and that he's terrified of doing. You might just get farther by trusting him, even when that feels scary. Stick to your own work. Stick to your, really investigating your fears. Spend some time with your inner child, asking her why she feels unsafe, why she feels like she needs to control everything, why she feels like she needs to tell everyone what to do. Where can you release tension? What can you do? What he does has to come from him. The way that he leads has to be his way of leading. Because if he only leads you in the way that you want him to lead you, you are still the one in charge. If you are leading your man into his leadership so that you get the leadership that you think you need, you have a man who is just doing what you told him to do. And it'll never feel real to you, and it'll always feel fake to him. You have to allow him to grow into what it looks like for him. And that will probably terrify some part of you, and that's yours. So if you want your man to lead, remember, he's not refusing to lead. He's not incapable of leading. But he is probably very conflicted. And he needs to learn how to do something that he has never seen done before. I hope this episode leaves you with this one thing, that he can. He probably needs someone to believe in him. Because inside of him is the energy of a very scared boy who thinks that everything that he is being called to do or being asked to do or wanting to do for himself, there's this very scared little boy that feels like he's going to really destroy something, that he's really going to end up getting rejected or hurting someone. And again, if you have a good man, he does not want to hurt you. He doesn't want to hurt anything. So I hope this episode also helps you understand and feel a little bit of compassion for why leadership and masculinity and dominance are such challenging things for men. You both want connection, intimacy, safety. The only thing that you can really truly take responsibility for is your own part. You have to leave his part to him. So this isn't a quick fix. There is no route to having this next week. Let that feel scary or sad or however it feels to you. This is not a quick process. There's a reason that we say the words on this podcast and in all of our content so much. Patience, 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 compassion, compassion, compassion. This isn't a path to never having what you want and to everybody being soft. It's a very necessary deep healing that allows the things that you want to be real. So there is hope. This can be real. I mean, my God, Dawn and I really wish sometimes people could see what the relationship between us was like 10 years ago versus what it's like now. And we're still not perfect. I still make mistakes. She still tries to control things. I still get afraid of leading her as authoritatively as she craves. Still. But we keep getting better. And that commitment to continual improvement, the devotion to seeing this through with each other, this is what I want so much by sharing our relationship and our life with you in the way that we do, is to give you hope that it is possible for this not just to be a performance, but for it to be real. And so, if you find yourself asking, why won't he just lead? I hope this episode gave you a little bit deeper look into why that really might be. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Dom Sub Devotion, and we will be back next week with the mirror episode to this one. Why won't she just let go? Speaking to men about the challenges that women face with surrender, with letting go of control, and why that is so terrifying for her. We'll see you next week.